Welcome back. Today we're going to be doing Clutch Gaming versus Cloud9. This is week 3, day 2. Coming out a little bit earlier today, the video will be hopefully much more exciting. Hopefully, it looks like I took a sneak peek at the draft. It looks like that this game will be a lot closer and a lot more exciting. So Cloud9, obvious favorite for their competitive history versus Clutch Gaming. Clutch Gaming given blue side. So here's the pause of the draft. We get still standard bans. We're still 9.2. Any interesting bans that come out here is going to be Zoe. Zoe ban possibly targeted at Niski. I think Zoe is one of the strongest mid laners of 9.3. Was still definitely tier 1 and 9.2, and is always just a great pick for push in mid lane and pick potential. The Camille ban also coming out. Remember that in 9.3, Camille is nerfed that her E does no longer stun or damage minions and monsters. So Camille jungle will no longer be a contested pick after this patch, but it is still extremely strong, especially when paired with anything that can help out the strength of her ultimate, such as Shen or Galio. So opening up the draft, Clutch Gaming starts with Alistar. This is actually a really strong pick. I like it. Alistar not only provides a lot of strength in the bottom lane as a scary pick, but it gives reliable engage throughout the game and has great roaming potential. And pretty good peel. I said peel. So Cloud9 go ahead and they respond with Ezreal Nocturne. So ADC pick is going to be Ezreal just because it's safe. He can pick it really early and it kind of hides what the Cloud9 draft might be looking like. And then the jungle pick, Nocturne. I find this really interesting that Cloud9 is putting a lot of priority onto the Nocturne because I don't think that it is actually quite that strong of a pick this patch. But if utilized correctly, it can be a pretty good jungle carry. And along with the Ezreal, it does look like that they're going to have some kind of mid-game spike. But we'll go ahead and get through the rest of their draft later. We see mid-game assassination and spiking on the side of Cloud9, and it doesn't really show a lot of their team comp. So good response. Clutch Gaming decide to respond with Sivir. So Sivir is pretty good into Ezreal. Sivir can ignore a lot of what Ezreal's doing and usually push him in pretty hard. And is overall just really sturdy and has really good scaling at 6 items. Urgot is a great pick for the blue side because it's a flex pick. So it will be able to hide just a little bit. So unless Cloud9 are to respond with a flex pick, the Urgot is definitely going to be it's going to make it harder for Cloud9 to get 3 winning lanes on the red side, or at least 2 winning lanes and solo lanes on the red side, which is generally the goal of the draft. They respond with Scion, which is a very common counter pick into Urgot because he's able to ult away. He's able to ult away out of the Urgot ult. Urgot ult will not be able to drag him in. So second ban phase comes along. The Zilean gets knocked out. I'm not sure if this is like a target ban from the yesterday's game, and by yesterday's game I'm referring to the day before this game, Clutch Gaming versus 100 Thieves, or if they think that Demonte would be playing Zilean mid, which could possibly pose a threat. And then they go ahead and ban Syndra, who is pretty strong in this patch, and is a great mid-game rusher who has a good laning phase and is quite scary. Clutch Gaming ban out the Ornn and the Braum. Now I don't think Ornn is particularly the best champion in the current meta, but I guess his ultimate could be quite strong when paired with Ezreal and Nocturne. I just don't think that that C9 would have a lot of damage if they went ahead and picked Ornn and they had Ornn and Sion for solo laners. The Braum pick is nice. It kind of says that if Cloud9 want a safe bot, then they kind of have to rely on the on the Tahm Kench as the backup pick for the Ezreal, which makes it kind of hard because there's no other really good supports right now that can provide a lot of peel and defense in the lane that kind of lets Ezreal just sit there forever. Because mage supports just aren't, they're almost never in the meta. And we haven't seen them for a long time, and I don't expect to be seeing them anytime soon, unless something crazy like Ardent meta comes back. Which I suppose AD changes could lead to that, if that happens to be mutually beneficial, then it could come back. So after the ban phase, Clutch Gaming basically says, okay, well, you can have Tahm Kench, but we don't want you to have Braum. It is possible that Ornn could be a support pick, and maybe they just didn't want to play against Ornn support, which is also kind of annoying. But I also don't think it's kind of good. I don't think it's that good against I don't think it's that good against Sivir in this specifically. So Cloud9 go ahead and they respond with Shen. This is interesting because this definitely provides a mid-game power pick, like power. I'm running out of words. This is a good option to have when you want to be proactive and aggressive. It makes it very easy to tower dive mid or bot. So if they were able to find one of Clutch Gaming's solo laners alone, they could dive them with 3 people, especially if the Shen's coming from bot. So this is likely a Shen support. We haven't seen Shen top in a long time. Probably won't see it that much unless Camille comes back into meta, because Shen is quite good in the Camille top, which she might at some point. But this is particularly good for the mid game just because they want to get accelerated. And if they can accelerate themselves, then it's going to be quite easy to get an early lead. Well, not that early, but like between level 6 and level 11, get a lead so that 11 plus they can go ahead and take over the game. Clutch Gaming respond with Lee Sin and Lissandra. So Lee Sin also going to be providing all that early pressure that Nocturne will not be able to provide. So Nocturne's going to be limited to counter ganks in the early. And then they also take Lissandra, which will provide a lot of pressure in the mid lane. It will also provide a lot of pressure around neutral objectives. And the Lissandra-Lee Sin combo is also quite scary. Having an AD assassin with a control mage, really it's almost a support mage because she carries so much CC in favor of the actual damage that she would have if she didn't have so much CC. This can be a very scary combo. Okay, so very good drafts from both teams. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the win conditions. And I only let them switch because it's a lot easier for people to visualize. So we see that it is possible that for the early game, Urgot's going to be pushing, but he's never going to have kill pressure. So we're either going to have soft tempo in favor of Clutch Gaming. And the soft tempo that's in favor of Clutch Gaming will definitely help them control the top side. The only thing that they have to worry about would be if Nocturne's able to affect that in some way. The jungle matchup is pretty similar. Lee Sin is able to pressure Nocturne, But Nocturne will likely be farming, and Lee Sin will likely be ganking. Nocturne is going to benefit a lot more from a slower game until about level 6. Lee Sin is going to benefit from a faster game. If he gets a small lead, he will be able to use that gold much more effectively than most champions in the game. At least up until about 2 items before he starts falling off. Lissandra Galio. So I've talked a lot about Lissandra in previous VOD reviews. Lissandra is actually going to get the push here. And this is post Galio nerf, from what I understand. Maybe post like rebuff on the Q, but like this is not the Galio that we were seeing in 9.1. It's not the 100% pick ban. So he won't be able to get a whole lot of lane priority, and he won't actually be that scary, at least not until he gets an item, and maybe he'll be able to do quite a bit of damage. But Lissandra is going to be able to push this lane. She will also have soft tempo in the favor of CG, so very, very good in terms of early game pressure coming out from Clutch Gaming. Along with the ganking, this makes it very, very strong as a tempo comp. And then Galio will be able to roam to other lanes, but he will likely not be able to roam to other lanes if Damonte is always pushed in. He will have to roam by forfeiting mid-plating, and he will also have to forfeit the CS. And then the bottom lane, this is very simple. Shen can be annoying, but Sivir's always going to push this. So and these two will definitely win a 2v2 early on. Maybe not before first back, but between first back and like third back, yes. Up until about maybe level 9, it'll be very difficult for Ezreal Shen to win a 2v2, and I'm very skeptical that Ezreal Shen would ever win a 2v2. So we're actually looking at hard tempo on bottom side. So Cloud9 is playing for very, very generally, and we're gonna create general terms just so that it's very simple to understand what they want. A macro mid game comp. Can't spell with my tablet. So they are looking for plays across the map, across multiple members of their team in the mid game, so that they're able to make big leads and big plays to turn the game in their favor. And this will lead into a possible foe 1-3-1. And I say foe because either Shen or Galio, usually Galio, can be in a side lane. And even it's really even more complicated than that. It's actually a Divergence comp, but I don't think I should explain all of their options on Champ Select. I think we should start with the game before we look at all of the options that they can do. When you say foe 1-3-1, what you specifically mean is that someone in a side lane will be in a side lane, but they have some sort of global. So Shen is able to move immediately from a side lane into a fight and be useful before he's even there. Galio is also the same. He gives someone armor and magic resist before he even is anywhere in the fight. But all of this tempo from Clutch Gaming, including the aid from Lee Sin, if they're able to get leads before Cloud9 is able to reach the point in the game in which they're able to make big plays, or if they're able to deny the big plays that Cloud9 wants to make, since it's very clear that they want to Nocturne Shen Galio, it's a very standard wombo, then they have a very good strong win condition as well. So you're actually looking at a 1-3-1 tempo, and this is a dedicated 1-3-1. And then you're also looking at neutral objective control, since they really want those scrappy fights, and scrappy fights are actually beneficial for them when Cloud9 does not yet have the resources. And they also want to scale a little bit as well. They are okay with 6 item. Now, if there's any weaknesses that either team has, Clutch Gaming actually doesn't have any weaknesses besides possibly Lee Sin eventually becomes very difficult and has very few options. So Lee Sin does not like long games. So he will likely turn into a tank at some point, maybe after 2 damage items. And then Cloud9's weakness is they have very limited wave clear, and that's actually limited to Galio. Limited wave clear. So the limited wave clear is interesting. And then they also have Nocturne, which disencourages the 1-3-1, but it also means that they're going to commit somewhere against a 1-3-1, and they're going to end up losing turrets if they are in a tempo-driven 1-3-1. So if trapped in dominated strategy, plays are very predictable. Okay, so this does look like quite an interesting game compared to the VOD review that we looked at yesterday. I just want to see. Is this a 5-point? C9 getting a little bit ahead for. It seemed like they wanted vision there, but they didn't. They didn't want to commit too hard because they were afraid of maybe an Alistar Lee Sin, which can be really scary at level 1. Both junglers starting at red. Okay, so this is a really standard start. We see both junglers going red golems, and what this does is it gives them a lot of early gold. CG got vision on bottom side. I guess they found it really important they had that early vision. That's really spicy. Because they just, maybe that was their plan before they went ahead and got a level 2 gank. Cloud9 actually had vision in both the bottom side and the top side. I think they were expecting Lee Sin to go for early scuttles and possibly do double scuttle to get ahead of Svenskeren. Because if Lyra can get a level ahead of Svenskeren, it really complicates the Nocturne power spike. Because if Lee Sin's able to make big plays across the map before Nocturne is able to go ahead and get his ultimate, then his ultimate becomes less useful. So Lyra went 2 camp into bottom. So this is really interesting. So Vulcan here actually probably let himself get taunted. I wouldn't be surprised. So they lost level 1. And I'll go ahead and remind you that Piglet and Alistar actually should never lose the level 2 if they're both in the lane at the same time. I know that Piglet did use his Q to get poke onto Zizel early before the lane started, and his Q was on cooldown for when the minions came. But normally, Piglet, or Sivir and Alistar are going to push the lane against Shen and Ezreal because they just don't have, or they have the resources to push. in Alistar's Q and Sivir Q. Whereas given only Ezreal Q, the pushing from C9 is a little slow. So C9 getting level 2 first is possibly something intentional by CG. And if it is intentional to create this play and look for a mistake from C9 for them to overcommit, then it was that was really smart. Or if it was just Piglet being silly and not getting level 2 first, and then it just happens to be nice that their plan was to go ahead and get an early gank bottom. I really dislike replays. Only because I don't see a big part of the game. So here's something that would have been important to know. You would think that I really wish this replay didn't happen. So I can only assume what's going to happen while the replay is here, because Riot Games doesn't want me to see everything apparently. Nocturne's going for Lee Sin's blue, and Lee Sin is unsure whether Nocturne has gone for his blue or Nocturne has gone for his own blue. So this becomes a predicament for Lee Sin, and I think Lee Sin is probably the one who pings this question mark saying, should I go check this, and am I able to take it? And this is possibly something that he's able to force if Vulcan wants to go help him, but it's not something that he needs to do unless he already knows that Nocturne is not going to be there. And even if he knows that Nocturne is going to be there, Clutch Gaming needs to be ready to spend a lot of resources if they want it to be successful, because they know that they can force it if Nocturne's in his top side, because there's no way Nocturne is going to be able to make it down to his blue while Lee Sin is there. So what would have actually helped here is if Lee Sin's going to make... Oh, I see. Nocturne was seen. Yeah, Nocturne appeared in that ward here. So Lee Sin should actually know that Nocturne's top. So I think that if I were Clutch Gaming, I would make this call and try and trade blues. Because there's not really a whole lot that Shen and Ezreal can do here in order to prevent it. Now, if they wanted to teleport Licorice, I guess they could, but I don't think that would be particularly useful. And I think it's just kind of hurting the fact that Lee Sin did get a lead, that he's not going to get a buff, which is quite a bit of experience. So Nocturne is actually going to hit his level 6, a little bit ahead of par for having an extra buff. And I think that's not very good for CG. Uni getting 1v1'd. This is really strange. And I'm not gonna say that this is something that's impossible. Because remember, Huni did not take like an aggressive keystone. He took Unsealed Spellbook because it's a lot more useful to his team to take Unsealed Spellbook than it would be to take something like a Comet, or I forget what the other offensive rune that people like to take. But you can also take defensive runes. Like he could even take Grasp. Grasp on Urgot wouldn't be that bad. So I don't know why this is happening, other than the fact that you see that Licorice has a rune that's more useful to a 1v1 fight, and he's able to make that force. But generally, the ranged matchup has a little bit of an advantage. It seems that Huni made a misplay here, was hit by a Q, and Huni did not want to flash that Q. So let's go ahead and see that more closely. So yeah, he got hit by a Q. That was about a 1 second stun. Now remember that full Scion Q, I'm pretty sure is a 1.5 second stun. So he did get hit by about a 2/3 charged Q, which is very interesting. That should not have happened. He should have flashed out of that, and this would not actually be an issue. He really shouldn't be caught in the first place, and let that happen, at least not early. Because if this happens a little bit later in the lane, Urgot is too tanky for it to really mean a whole lot. At least unless he lets it happen about 3 or 4 times. But 1 or 2 of those really early on is going to make this big play happen, and give Licorice the lead in the lane. And now Huni is going to lose a lot of the soft tempo he has in the push, because Huni gets to push because he's ranged, at least until Scion gets levels. And even then, it starts to become a pressure matchup, whereas whoever is more tanky and has more DPS is going to win. That's generally Urgot. So that's really bad for Urgot. Huni opts into a Cole on that, which I find a little bit interesting. But yeah, that was really irresponsible. Huni should have flashed there really early. And he shouldn't be in the position to let that happen. He should just back. If he knows if he's going to buy a call anyway, or if he wants boots or something to make this his life a lot easier, then he could do that and teleport back if that's his plan. And then Scion will have to respond with teleport rather than giving Scion a lot of gold. So we're approaching a point in the game where Galio and Scion have level 6. You're really just waiting on the Nocturne level 6, and then C9's able to make some big plays. And because they're not very far behind on gold, it's actually less than 100, then it won't be it's not very difficult for them to make a very big dedicated play. And the first dedicated play that they make will probably be on bottom side because they want to get this Fire Dragon. So here's the Nocturne level 6. And they go ahead and they rotate into Fire Dragon to start it already. CG sees it and they go to respond. It's interesting. I don't understand what the prerogative is here. So it's very clear that Clutch Gaming wants the Fire Dragon. I don't think that one Fire Dragon is going to change the game a whole lot. If you push the lanes and apply pressure on the outside, it's going to cause the same thing that would be beneficial for CG in the first place, which would be that Cloud9 doesn't have any teleports, and Urgot's going to get a free push on top. So Urgot getting a free push on top is actually really strong. But losing your jungle and your mid flash, and then trading 1 for 2 is not exactly a good idea. Because now they have Fire Dragon, and then you've traded 1 for 2. Like, you've given Scion the gold that he would have lost in top lane, while Urgot gets plating. So imagine this. Urgot gets 2 platings, while Scion roams to this fight, and Scion misses a wave. You're talking about upwards of 450 gold that Urgot will be getting, and Scion doesn't, which will swing a lot more the fight here. And I'm not saying Scion gets a lot of gold from this fight, but he does get an assist, which does make quite a big difference. Gives him experience, and it gives C9 more tempo that they're going to have several kills, rather than nothing, rather than just the Fire Dragon. If you push in all the waves, they'll lose a lot of CS, they'll lose everything on the map, for a Fire Dragon. If they feel like that's necessary, that's fine for C9 because they want to be able to scale a little bit better. But it's not absolutely necessary that CG get that Fire Drake because they already scale harder anyway. Or at least the Sivir does. The Sivir itself is extremely strong and very hard to kill. Very hard to kill with Lissandra and Alistar being able to peel her. And although Ezreal can be really annoying in a late game, if Ezreal's alive and Sivir has Alistar, but they managed to kill everybody else because the rest of C9 can just go in, but they can't really get out, then it's going to be very complicated for them to win the game. Because not even Ezreal can stop really turret pushing. Piglet getting really pushed out here. It's a lot of damage that he probably wouldn't have to be taking. So C9's applying their global pressure in the Nocturne and the Galio to just get free turret plating on bot, which is really good by them. But if it's played safer by CG and the bot, then they wouldn't actually have to lose so much. It would really end up being that Galio leaves lane and he loses the CS and doesn't actually have a win condition. And if necessary, Demonte can teleport bot. And a 4v4 under tower is still favorable for Clutch Gaming, just because there's actually not that much damage coming out from C9. Like, if they can't one-shot someone with Nocturne, and Nocturne doesn't really have, like, one-shot build, he has his lethal tempo. He does have a BF sword, but it's not going to be scary enough. So another dragon going to C9. This one, Clutch Gaming is ready to give, but then again, C9 does not have to donate nearly as many resources in order to take it. I feel as if Clutch Gaming needs to make a play. So I just want to pause here because notice how we're approaching 15 minutes. Clutch Gaming has not really utilized the Lissandra as to what it can be utilized for, and not like Lissandra's even in a position right now where she wants to be super aggressive. Like, Demonte's holding 1,300 gold. You don't really want to do that. He's at the point where, like, right now he's is he backing? And if he's not backing, I think it's irresponsible. Like, this is not the time for him to make a really aggressive play. But he's staying on the map anyway. So now he's holding 1,500 gold and he's staying on the map. It's like he wants to buy his whole Luden's Echo before he backs, which I guess is fine. But you ideally want to be really proactive with Lissandra. Like, you Lisa and Lissandra because they're both extremely good at being proactive. And with the Alistar, you could have punished the Nocturne a lot more. And even though fights would be really scrappy, you could be accelerating the game and giving your carries gold. And transitioning that gold into pressure that you would have over neutral objectives rather than C9, and pressure on turrets. So, you know, even the turret plating by C9 that C9 got just by walking towards bot and hitting a few Qs on Piglet because Piglet wanted to trade. By Ezreal Qs, I mean. Then that was all the turret plating that they got in the game. And CG only got one on top. But they could easily have exerted a lot more pressure. They could have made any rotation with Lissandra, because Lissandra Lee Sin does act as a roaming unit, just because they're so strong that if they find anybody in the jungle, it's not very easy for them to A, get away, and B, survive. So Damonte ended up buying his Luden's Echo, so maybe CG will want to do something now that he's on a really big power spike. They do have the entire bottom side pinked, which helps Lissandra be able to get over, but he wants to keep mid lane pressure while he roams. That's fair. Lissandra making another back. CG is really trying to control bottom side. I wouldn't be surprised if they really wanted this Stone Dragon, just because if they give C9 2, it's going to give C9 too much Baron pressure. So Sivir actually makes another back and teleports in, and Urgot rotates to mid lane. So now CG has 5 people on bottom side, and C9 match it. Here's the fight. So that's not very surprising. Let's look at the positioning of everybody before this fight starts. Remember I said CG favors scrappy fights? They favor scrappy fights if they're in a position where they can do that. So Lee Sin and Alistar are trying to help Sivir, but that doesn't work because they have 4 people on them, whereas Damonte and Huni are diving sneaky. This, like, I think what I really wanted to say is that CG favors skirmishes. They want 3v3s, they want maybe even 4v4, but a 5v5 is really difficult, and if you are going to get a 5v5, you can't really be diving the Ezreal. You have to peel back and just constantly peel and pick down at the divers that are going to be going forward. So like Huni and Damonte need to also be on top of Sivir, and they just need to run back with the Sivir ult, and using the Sivir ult, they might be able to one, kill the Nocturne, because that's actually the primary damage of C9. It's the Nocturne. Its secondary damage of C9 is definitely Galio. And then Ezreal's just a kite carry, which is why he's also so extremely hard to kill, because he has to be flashed on to even die. But this 5v5 fight without one of the strategies that needed to be done is just not favorable for CG. And this is also why like CG wanted to be more proactive early. Like they wanted to Lissandra to already be a monster in fights. But like let's imagine this for a second. Lissandra, fuck. I can't pause it at the right time. Lissandra E's over the wall here. They ult Nocturne and they manage to kill Nocturne. The Nocturne Ghost moves forward as the Galio ult and the Scion all move forward. Urgot can even come in on the back line as kind of the front carry. And as the ghosts pop, they can just keep using the the Sivir ult to peel back out of the Galio ult. And even if Urgot has to die, they can start moving forward once they're able to peel down and break down Shen and Nocturne. And then they gain tempo because they have a second ghost in the Shen, and that ghost will just move forward, and it causes Sion a really big issue in trying to move forward. This is really interesting because it's very difficult for CG to get in this position, because this is actually a great spot for this to happen, because it's not a choke point. Like they're not in some kind of peninsula looking area. They're in an area in which they can run freely back and forth, and that they were previously controlling. The problem is that they thought that Sneaky was the primary target when really Nocturne is the primary target, and playing front to back is actually going to be more favorable against the all-in comp than trying to dive a backline carry when you have 3 divers going in on your squishy jungler and ADC. And like and Alistar just can't really provide all the peel for 4 people. So I think that might have been able to, if not save CG here, I think that would have been able to make the play salvageable in terms of like getting 2 for 2 or even 3 for 3. And something like that could give them a favorable step in the game, because it accelerates the game outside of the tempo game. It accelerates the game forward. So whoever gets that gold on the side of CG starts to become more of a threat, and it makes it much more difficult for C9 to play their standard dive comp. Because the more threats that CG have on their team, and they have 2 very strong threats in the Lissandra and the Sivir, who are both hardy champions that are hard to kill, then it makes it a lot harder for C9 to continue with their win condition. I like how there was a replay, and then after the replay, I just get Monkey Fiesta. Okay, so like here's the replay, and I'm already. I want to know how this happened. I want to know like why CG is here, but I can't because Riot doesn't. They don't want me to know. Okay, so here's what I can assume. CG place wards in the top side, and they're going to use the corridor behind Baron to try and take control of a little bit of the enemy's jungle, and then they're going to try and kill someone before teleports come in on the enemy team. And they want to do it while Shen ult is on cooldown, because doing it while Shen ult is on cooldown will make their lives a lot easier. So here's the actual initiation of the play. Urgot went to dive, and Zeyzal and that Sneaky are there by themselves. Nocturne is on his way to top. I believe Nocturne's ult is just about off cooldown. Nocturne just happened to be on his way to top. This might have something to do with CG thinking that Nocturne would go bot for blue. I think that's a little bit of an overlook. Like, at this point in the game, a champion like Nocturne isn't that focused on his buffs. He might be focused on red buff because it helps him get assassinations, but it's not exactly that important for specifically him. His blue buff would actually serve Ezreal a lot better, and probably be best on Ezreal, even compared to something like Galio. I think it would be Ezreal, and even double buff Ezreal rather than Nocturne getting red buff is also extremely good. for a kite carry. So they go for a dive on the enemy bottom lane, and they know that Galio and Sion have teleports. So Galio and Sion teleport. The problem is that they're not able to kill Sneaky. Like, I don't know what this play, like, I don't know who's making this call. But this is not right. Like, Sneaky has Frozen Gauntlet, and Lee Sin has 1 damage item. Lee Sin is going for Warmogs. Like, I don't know what he's building with Kindle Gem and Ruby Crystal. But there's no way that Lee Sin would just the jungle item versus a Frozen Gauntlet Ezreal he's gonna one-shot him. That's just not gonna happen. So there's just not there's not enough resources before this play happens. Like, if this play happened to include like Lissandra in there with Lee Sin, and Lissandra is able to one-shot Ezreal, then this fight might be able to be viable, like, as an option. But I'm really concerned with who's making this call from Clutch and how they got here. So you do see Lissandra is on her way. Oh, she teleported back here. Like, this should have came a lot earlier then. Either there are 2 problems here. One, Liss teleport came really late. And this may not be a derivative of the problem that I'm going to state that might have happened. This was an emergency call. I think that this act was very desperate. I think it was very irresponsible. And I think that if it was going to be made, then the Lissandra teleport would actually have come much earlier. Like before Urgot's even in the tower. So, or like as Urgot's entering the tower, so that like Lissandra would already be on top of Ezreal right now. So this Lissandra's TP coming late could be a derivative of bad communication or a very like desperate call that probably was better off not made. But I don't really like CG's performance here. Like, at this point, giving up tempo is okay, because if we look at the state of the game, even though C9 has quite a bit of dragons, at 21 minutes, a gold lead of less than 3,000. Oops. Gold lead of less than 3,000 is actually phenomenal. Like, CG is behind less than, what is that? Less than about 7%. And this is extremely favorable for them because the longer the game goes, the more that this team comp will actually be able to shine in terms of actual team fighting. They'll be able to kite back, they'll be able to resist the Nocturne, they'll be able to play extremely calmly. They may not actually have the most aggressive options, but they will have the most reactive options, because C9 is always going to be forced to be the proactive decision maker in this game, because they want to end the game faster rather than later. And like, as the clock ticks, that just gets easier for Clutch Gaming. And if Clutch Gaming wanted to do something, they needed to do it earlier in the game, and they needed to keep better track of like Nocturne ult and understanding windows, teleport timers, and really just like how capable they are of making specific plays. Like, there is no way Lyra is going to one-shot Sneaky here. Like, if you want to see it again, Lyra dashes in, gets a full combo on Sneaky, and only takes his half of his health bar. So this is very irrational, And I think this is what actually causes CG to lose the game. And I didn't know how they lost because I haven't seen the game, but I did see the standings. So I am aware that C9 does win. And that was how this game happened. Because frankly, this looks a lot better in terms of draft from the 100 Thieves game. And there's a lot of better decision making. It's just I think in the early game they could have been more proactive. Alistar could have roamed even. Like they could have had Lissandra roam more. They could have utilized the Lissandra ultimate more than once in the early game. There was just so much more that could have been done, and they decided not to do it. But that was okay because they have late game insurance in the Sivir and all the peel and the fact that C9's team comp is all mid game. But when they make an irrational decision to be proactive, which ultimately causes them to lose a very important fight, and ultimately causes them to lose Baron, now you're starting to see Gold League go from about 7% all the way up to, well, right now it's at 15%. So, and once you're at 20%, the game is almost lost. And since C9 have a foe 1-3-1, with a Baron buff, it becomes extremely difficult for anything else to happen. Now they have the push in bottom lane, so Galio can even grow into the mid lane, keep mid lane pushed, and Sion can go into the bottom lane. Or they can go ahead and make an aggressive play. I guess that's fine too. Like notice, let's just be realistic here. Notice how it is actually difficult for C9 on this play, even though that they have such a really strong lead. So you're looking at that 40,000. Okay. You're looking at about a 19% lead on C9 before this play happens, which is huge. Huge. Like, it should be almost impossible for CG to win a fight. Now, if you look really closely, C9 actually perform an all-in, and they do not fare extremely well. They are not able to kill all of CG. They lose health bars. They lose Nocturne's GA. So they lose a lot of really important resources just from trying to make a forest that they probably didn't have to make. They could have split the map. They have Baron. Like this is actually very irresponsible from C9. I think that they were over judging their damage and capability there. Because splitting the map with Baron is going to be a lot easier for them. But Clutch Gaming could even hold on in that fight. And Clutch Gaming are also able to get a 2-for-2, which is extremely favorable for them, even though they end up losing an inhibitor tower. So these are all very interesting ideas that let us understand a little bit more about where this game would have gone if Clutch Gaming didn't feel the need to make really rash decisions. It's even getting harder for C9. Almost a 10,000 gold lead, you're still looking at about 20% of a lead, not including Fire Dragon. But it's extremely difficult for C9 to actually finish out this game. Now, once they have another Baron, which is extremely possible, they can easily split the lanes and get all the inhibitors. And they might lose a split pusher, but they'll be able to get at least 2 inhibitors quite easily, and then the game will be very easy to finish. Because once your base is broken, it is extremely hard to come back. You become so weak. That was really unfortunate for Piglet. Svensson holds on to his GA. That's really unfortunate for CG. He will probably just come back for Baron. That was a lot of damage. And there's another Infernal Drake, which will only extend the amount of time that C9 is able to do things, because it's going to make Nocturne so ridiculous to deal with that it will be really hard for CG to outscale if they're already an item behind, and then C9 has 2 Fire Dragons. So let me just see this again for a second, because I want to see this Nocturnal. So Piglet actually flashes late. Kind of want to see that in slow motion. So let's look at that here. Piglet gets slowed, he pops his ultimate. He blocks the ult from Scion with his spell shield, but before Svensson actually hits him with the ult, he flashes. And it's not like that actually would have helped a whole lot, because Svensson could flash over with Licorice. But if Svensson E's to lock the fear chains onto Sivir, and Sivir is able to break them, Sivir will actually have more movement speed and be able to run away from Svensson. So this is really unfortunate for CG, because when he does get the taunt, only due to the fact that Svensson was able to keep the fear and not have to even, and he had to hit flash to burn fear, but he wouldn't have flash there otherwise, because he would have to flash just to chase Sivir. So this looks like a fight that CG would have fared a lot better in, assuming that that small misplay didn't happen. So the game looks a lot closer than it really should be. But remember, the clock is ticking, and now, you know, CG was 20% behind, and now that has deteriorated a little bit to about 16%. Just because as even trades continue to happen, that will that lead is incremented based on how much gold there actually is in the game. So if C9 don't actually get another Baron, it is possible for CG to still win. Like if CG were to get this Baron, I would think that it would be very difficult for C9 to go ahead and close the game. And they would end up losing a lot of turrets, and it would bounce back the gold lead. And even with the second Fire Dragon that C9 is going to get, the gold lead bouncing back to about even, or even slightly in the favor of Clutch, is very, very scary for C9, because their team comp is not able to win in the late game. And even with 2 Fire Dragons, it would be extremely difficult for them to do so. So Damonte gets caught there. That's really unfortunate. That's Baron, and that's probably game. That might not even be Baron, that might just be game. Yeah. So that's unfortunate. Want to see that again? Like, why is he this far up? Why? I can't tell you. I honestly could not. It makes sense that Clutch wants to fight for vision. They want to fight for push, so that they're able to get an access point to the Baron. But it also makes sense that they don't kill themselves. Like look at this solo kill. That is so much damage. I'm gonna put this in normal time. So that's with the Ezreal W, and his ultimate just popped him through about all of his HP. So that doesn't happen, and I don't even know if he had to ult there. Like, sure, he had to back, but he has teleport. You think? Oh, he E'd forward. Holy crap. That's really irresponsible. Can't get out of space. I don't know what he's doing that for. And like, I guess he could flash here, but his flash is pretty useful in the fight. At least if he flashes away there, he might be able to dodge the Ezreal ult if Ezreal decides to ult. And if he's able to move back and still get the peel with Nocturne going in, the fight can actually go into CG's favor, even though he made a really, really dumb mistake. But that's actually depressing. Demonte, I'm not gonna say Demonte lost the game because there were so many mistakes made by other people, and generally like macro mistakes made by Clutch Gaming, like decisions that are just not that important, but that small mistake at a 32-minute mark in the game is detrimental, and well, the punishment is the immediate loss of the game. So okay, we still see Clutch growing as a team. Like this game was a lot cleaner than the games that I've been reviewing so far. It was definitely cleaner than the day one versus 100 Thieves in week 3. And the draft actually makes sense. Like their draft is very strong, had a very good sense of what they wanted, and they were very attentive to what Cloud9 was also drafting and how they could prevent Cloud9's win condition from being too oppressive. Because it's very clear in this game that Cloud9, even with Fire Dragon, and tempo, and a big gold lead, their team comp was not oppressive enough to just shut CG out of the game. So I definitely think CG picked themselves up from the 100 Thieves game, but they need to keep having games like this if they want to hope to do better in the tournament. Because Cloud9 definitely is a better team. Like they're definitely under Liquid, one of the best teams in the league. So it's not like CG is performing all that badly. They just need to turn what I'm seeing now into a consistent performance. And if they can change it into a consistent performance, then it will be much better for them in the long run of the split. Okay, thank you for watching today. I hope it wasn't too long. Please leave comments and like and subscribe if you want to keep coming back for more videos. We'll be doing all of Clutch Gaming's NA's 2019 Spring Split games. So if you're a Clutch Gaming fan, keep coming back, or even if you just want to see the games versus the team that you like, go ahead and look for those. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.